So at the last page, basically at the end of it, Layla's father asks, like, are you a banshee or something? So, sorry if I'm being too forward, Peter says as he looks towards Kate and Luna, but saw you two fighting back there and I had a question to ask. Would you by any chance happen to be banshees? Out of the two of us, only I am a banshee, Luna says. Kate is a woman mage, but she wasn't born as one, she became one later. I see, Peter says, not really knowing what else to say. Also, I share this body with a little girl named Flower who can cast magic as well, Luna says. The fire jets you saw coming up were earlier from her, not from me. You share the body, Peter says in a slight state of shock, with your host? Ooh, Albert says. So that's why there are two names over your head when Dr. Reitzig's daughter did the introduction. So I'm guessing that your name was Luna then. Yes, that is correct, Luna says. Well, banshees or no, I'm sure that our king will be more than happy to have you on our team, Albert says. What do you mean, when you say king, you mean you're king of underground, right? Hardrick says, because it's starting to get a little confusing. Yeah, that's what I meant, Albert says, as we finally reach the end of the corridor and enter a large empty room with about a dozen chairs lined up near the entrance and a few people standing around in the middle of the hall. Anyway, this is the waiting room that we were talking about earlier. Please have a seat. In the meantime, Peter and I will go notify the arrival of your king of your arrival. As we are talking, a man in his 40s with a scar on his left eye, so I guess his left eye isn't working, and a rugged look about him slowly begins to approach us from the other end of the room. He seems to be one of the local mages, judging by his aura and by the warning signs I'm seeing above his head, although I can't tell if he's a weapon enchanter or if he has some other specialization. His sword hanging from his belt, he is wearing leather armor, but is also holding a staff in his right hand, which I'm assuming he uses for casting spells. Hey Albert, the man says as he gets closer to us. Are these the outsiders that Barry told us about earlier? Yes, they are the one, Albert says. Oh, the man says, looking somewhat impressed. So they're still not dead after facing the royal guards by themselves. Not bad at all. They've only met 3 of the royal guards, Albert says, the captain, the mercenary, and the giant. The other members of the guard must have been busy with some different missions. So you guys had a run-in with the captain, the man says with a surprise, with the scars, as he looks at it. What? The man with the scar says as he looks at us surprised. That would explain why you all look so beaten up. Tell me, what kind of madness possessed you when you decided to illegally infiltrate one of the most well-guarded city on the continent? It's because we heard that you guys are serving some good bagels around here. We only came here to do some trading. It's all just one big misunderstanding. We actually came here to kill the king of Holland. I think I'm gonna go with the bagels one. That's hilarious. That's because we heard you guys are serving really good bagels around here. If that's the case, then I'm sorry to tell you that your travel all this way for nothing, the man with the scar says. The bagels they serve here are absolutely terrible. Don't listen to anyone telling you otherwise. That is truly a shame, I say. But I guess since we're already here, we might as well stay for a while and do some sightseeing. Otherwise, it would feel like a wasted trip. No doubt, the man says. So tell me, outsiders, since you've already run into the royal guards, did you by any chance have the pleasure of meeting the overseer and his drones too? The overseer, I say. Oh, you mean that green eye metal ball that talks funny? Have you met him? Oh, drones. Right, of course. Some people call it drones, some people call it drones. I was thinking, what is the Minecraft enemy doing here? But whatever. You might think he's just some funny talking meta ball, but he's much more than that, the man says. The bastard has complete control over all those red-eyed metal balls you see flying around the city, and he can send them to attack you with dozens of elemental spells, or even use them to spy on you. Some people here may not agree with me, but from my point of view, the Overseer is even more dangerous than Billy Bob and the Royal Guards combined. I forgot who Billy Bob was. Oh, Billy Bob is the one who created the balls. Then who is the Overseer then? Whatever. You keep calling it a he, but the Overseer is clearly an it, Albert says. It's just some artificial intelligence protocol that was invented by the ancients a long time ago, which Billy Bob managed to repair recently. Regardless of how intelligent it is, that still doesn't make it a person. You only say that because you have never met him, the man with the scar says. I'm telling you, the bastard is only putting on an act. You might think he's dumb because of the way he talks, but one of these days, I swear he's going to overthrow the king to the crown himself, the new ruler of Olander, and you people won't be able to say that I haven't told you so when it happens. Yes, Brainan, Albert says, you have told us so. You have told us so thousands times, so maybe now if we could stop talking about this matter and focus, talking about the subject and focus on more important matters, don't you think? Hold on there, Hardrick says. You guys are telling me that the old scrap of metal with the green eye that talked to us is actually alive. Albert sighs. No, not alive in the real sense of the word, he says, just intelligent enough to make its own decision. But is that even possible? Hardrick says, making objects intelligent just by messing with their aura. Darren, you're an enchanter. Have you ever heard of something like this before? Hey, I don't even know that objects had auras until Arga told me about it a few days ago, Darren says. I always thought that I was just casting magic on the air around the items when I was doing the enchanting before. The auras of the object is just so different from that of living beings that I honestly can't tell what is possible and what is not. Of course it's possible, you idiots, Araka blurts out all of a sudden. It's just that when you're making golems, if golems can be smart enough to make decisions on their own, then why not also this overseer, whatever it's called? To me, this artificial intelligence sounds like a smarter version of these golems that you typically see guarding the ruins, attacking everyone that gets within their range of sight. I don't see why there's any need to treat it as something special. So if I wanted, I could just mess with the ore of some rock and I'd have my own personal army of highly intelligent stone golems then? Hardrick says, sure. Araka says, if you also combine those rocks with some ceridium and some of the blue crystal lying around these caves and a bunch of other stuff, then you can then spend a few decades working on them by using the knowledge you acquired from Magium, then yes, you'll have your army. Call me in 30 years and tell me how that's worked out for you. Anyway, Albert says, the important thing to know about the Overseer is that from what we have gathered, it does not seem to be on very good terms with Billy Bob the Lasethi, which is why it hasn't yet been granted full control of the drones in the city, and it is still labeled as an experimental protocol. We have reasons to believe that the Overseer has plans of its own, although it is unclear to us what exactly it's trying to accomplish. In either case, if we were to win it to our side, we would potentially gain a great ally, because these drones are most certainly a force to be reckoned with. Why do people keep calling them drowns? Melinda says. I'm pretty sure the correct name was drones. Isn't that what Billy Bob used to call them? No, I'm quite certain that I've heard him call them drowns once, Albert says. Or maybe it was drones. Listen, it doesn't really matter what he calls them. The name is stupid anyway. Let's just call them metal balls and be done with it. Actually, I like to call them golem heads, Melinda says, because of that eye that they have in the middle. Albert says, whatever. Come on, Peter, we should be going to meet the king. We have already kept him waiting long enough. Excuse me, says a little girl that is probably around 7 years of age as she is timidly approaching our group. Are you coming from the surface? Are you warriors? Yes, Darren says. Yes, we are. Why do you ask? Please, sir, the little girl says as she meekly grasps both me and Darren by our wrist. Could you help me find my family? My mother has been gone for 3 days and my father and brother for even longer than that. These people said they'd help me. They said that they'd help me find them, but they lied. They haven't looked for them at all. It's already been 3 days. Please, sir, you have to help me. You're my only hope. Come on, Alice. You know that you shouldn't be bothering strangers, Albert says. And he pulls the girl away from us as she looks as if she were on the verge of crying. Yes, sir, Alice says in a meek tone of voice with a very tired expression on her face, looking as if she'd already given up all hope. I'm sorry, it won't happen again. Sorry about that, Peter tells us, and then he turns to his friend. Let's go, Peter. Oh, it's no trouble, Darren says as he looks with a somewhat worried expression in his eyes at the girl and the two men slowly walking towards the end of the long hall. What was that all about? Hardrick asked Brainan, the man with the scar, with a low voice. You mean the girl? Brian says. We picked her up during a mission. All of her family had been taken away by the city guards and she has nowhere to go. Her father and brother were mages and they both disappeared without trace from their homes one night, never to be heard of from again, and they aren't the only mages that have been suddenly taken away by guards all of a sudden without any explanation in the past few years. These sort of situations have been happening increasingly more often as the years went by. People barely have the courage to talk about it anymore out of the fear that they may become the next ones to get dragged out of their homes in the middle of the night if they're not careful with their words. So are they killing the mages? Oh, I know what they're doing. They must be enslaving the mages and have them work to power up those Lasethi towers that they have managed to repair. I'm guessing that's what they're doing. They're repairing, not repairing the towers. The towers are already repaired, halfway through at least. They're just using them to power up the towers. Just have them constantly just rest, eat, and power up the device and then rinse and repeat. I'm guessing that's what they're doing.